and welcome to another edition of Turned Out a Punk. I'm your host, Damian Abraham. Once again, I'm bringing you a conversation with someone who grew up listening to punk, may or may not still be involved with punk, but had their life changed by the genre in a major way. Today on the show, my buddy, Barry Johnson from the band, Joyce Manor. Barry is someone who I met years and years ago, hung out with, have not had a chance to really sit down and talk to, and thanks to this podcast and the joys of technology, we got to do it twice in very short succession, but, you know, more on that in a second. But first, if you want to get to me, head over to the email address, turnedoutapunkpodcast@gmail.com. That is run by my brother and show producer and guest booker extraordinaire, Tristan Abraham, and he will get the message to me. And thank you, Tristan, for all the hard work that you do. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Left4Damian. If you want to support the show, the best way to support the show is by heading over to our brand new merch store. That's right. There's now a turnedoutapunk.com merch store. There's 3 t-shirts up there. Turned Out a Punk logoed shirt, my dad did, and then 2 shirts that I designed myself, and you can find those over there right now. Thank you very much to Corey for helping me set this whole thing up, and Gretchen and Brian, and it's a lot of work to do to set something like this up. Holy jeez, I had no idea. But thank you for their help, and you can find your shirts there. So get a Turned Out a Punk shirt. You can also support this show by telling all your friends about it, letting everyone know that you enjoy this podcast that we do here each and every, twice a week, generally. You can also support the show by subscribing to it and rating it on iTunes, and thank you to everyone that does do that, or by heading over to patreon.com/turnedoutapunk. And there's a huge, huge, huge thank you to everyone that does do that. Check out some of the stuff we do over there. There's footnotes, there's video episodes, there's lost episodes, all sorts of things. So you can find that over at patreon.com/turnedoutapunk. And once again, huge thank you to everyone that does support that thing. And speaking of support, thank you to the fine folks at Vans, House of Vans, for supporting this podcast for the last few years. And there is going to be a celebration coming down because we are now at the 10th anniversary of the House of Vans. My gosh, does time fly. And there's going to be a celebration. I'm going to be involved because Turned Out a Punk has been a part of this thing for a long time. And I got to play there with Fucked Up. So, you know, big congratulations to House of Vans and Vans for supporting this thing and supporting my bands and lots of other bands too. So thank you to them. Speaking of my band, I play in this band called Fucked Up. We are going to be putting out a bunch of records, going on tour. You can find out more information at fuckedup.cc. You can also find out more information at Get Better Records, Tank Crime Records, and Matador Records, because they're going to be putting out the records. But more info on that there. All right, on to today's show. Today on the show, my buddy, Barry Johnson. Now, I first met Barry, I'm pretty sure this was the first time we met him. We played a festival out in L.A., and it was one of those things where there's like tons of bands playing, so you get your dressing room for a small period of time. They took our dressing room away. I'm milling around, and the people at Joyce Manor were like, hey, just come hang out over here in our dressing room. And we hung out for the rest of the day, and it was awesome, and sort of, remained in contact and friends. And so Barry is someone who I've wanted to have on the show for a long time, but you know how it goes. You don't see someone for a while, and then you're like, do I send him a DM and ask him to come on this podcast? It seems so weird, And anyway, now it has finally happened twice, as I said, because the first time we recorded it got lost. I don't know where it is. I don't know how it got lost, but it got lost. But Barry very graciously agreed to come back and record again, and now you get to hear it. And it's a great conversation. We get to connect a lot of worlds, which is what I love to do here on this podcast. And that's it. I'm not going to ramble on anymore. Joyce Manor, of course, is a fantastic band, and they have a newish compilation-ish album, of rarities compilation, called Songs from the Northern Torrents, which you can pick up on Epitaph Records. And also, it looks like their self-titled album is getting a remastered repress on Asian Man Records. So pick that up as well. That is the self-titled album. And check out Joyce Manor when they play some shows. They're playing some shows coming up. They're a fantastic live band, and yeah, I love these conversations, both of them. The first one was great too, but this was a great one as well. So sit back, relax, and enjoy Barry Johnson on Turned Out a Punk. Barry, thank you for coming back on the show.
Hey, Damian, thanks so much for having me again.
Well, computer problems be damned. No one, unfortunately, will be able to check out that episode because it has now been lost to some sort of internet ether out there. But we are back. You've graciously come back to the show, Barry, and we are going to do kind of a part 2 for you and me, but
Yeah.
a part 1 for everyone else in this world.
Yeah. And I'm gonna just say all different shit too, just to make up a whole new backstory.
Well, I luckily remembered a couple key points that I definitely want to bring up again, because there's a couple reveals in that episode that really shocked me. But anyway, we'll get there. If we don't, I will prompt you with those. But Barry, we got to start this off the way they start off. As you know, how did you get into punk?
I got into punk through, so I grew up in Southern California and we had K-Rock, and around like 1995, I would say, they started kind of playing, I guess the first punk stuff I heard was The Offspring. And then from there, like the kind of stuff they were playing on K-Rock, which would have been like Goldfinger and the Suicide Machines, were the first things I can remember hearing that I felt like was different. It was different than other stuff that was on like a alternative radio at the time. And it just sounded more punk. Like it was like snottier and just sounded like punk. And so I went to the local CD store by my house, and I got those, but I didn't really think of them as punk. I just thought of them as like new cool records. And then I was at that same CD store, and I was just looking at CDs, and I found a copy of Punkorama 2, and it was $4.99. And I showed my dad's friend who I was there with, and I was like, "Hey, check it out. This CD's only $5." And he was like, "No, that's a mistake. Like CD can't be $5. Like he was like yeah, like they wouldn't even break even on that. CD can't be $5." So I asked the people at the front, I was like, "Is this CD $5?" And they were like, they scanned it. They're like, "Yep, $5." And so I told him, I was like, "Told you, it's $5." And then he's like, "Damn, all right, do you want it?" And he bought it for me, and it's Punkorama 2, and that was like huge for me. And
that's a good one too.
Oh God, it's so good. I listen to it all the time. Like so at the time I was really, really into like the Descendents and like Pennywise and kind of the more fast stuff. And then when I would revisit the record over the years, I would find like stuff I missed. Like I really would like get into like the Humpers, or like Millencolin, or like the Joy Killer, which is like the TSOL dude. Like afterwards,
that was Jack Grisham's. I think they even were touring a lot at that point. I think they came here with Pennywise.
Yeah. Okay. So, but it's a little bit of a different sound. It wasn't as like Pennywise, that Epiphat sound. Like it's There's quite a bit of like of stuff on. I think Zeke might have had a song on it, and like
DFL's on that one too. New Bomb Turks.
Oh, dude. Oh, New Bomb Turks. That song fucking rules. And that DFL song, so sick.
Yeah. DFL. It's funny. Like talking to Monty was on the show not too long ago, and they were like one of the few bands at that time that was like doing traditional sounding old like fast hardcore.
Yeah, that song on that has like rapping in it, right? Doesn't it?
I think so, because is that the remix song on it? I'm trying to remember what
it's.
The Thought Control. I gotta double check what song that is.
Yeah, when there's like everywhere, it's like rapping. I was like, damn, this is so sick. And then like Great Poison Idea song, like the Poison Idea song, I liked it as a kid, but going back and listening to it now, I just like the fucking drumming on it alone is like fucking unreal. So that's a great comp. So that was big. That was really when I was all in.
Apparently, Jerry A said that was like kind of like done without the band's permission. Like it was one dude kind of like running over to Epitaph and being like, "Yo, you got these masters. Do you want to put up this reissue this record?" And that's how it came about.
Whoa, yeah. So yeah, from there I just got like comps, and it was kind of, it would have been like an end of elementary school, and then like by middle school I was getting like really into skateboarding, and a lot of punk in that too, like in the Toy Machine videos and the Zero videos. So it's always kind of just like spattering of songs. Like I did have some albums, like I got like the Nitro Records comps, and then got as I was kind of getting into punk, my friend Ben had an older brother named Chris who was like, he might have already been in high school, and he was into punk, and he was really nice and kind of, he like let me ask him questions. I was like, hey, do you know Goldfinger? And he's like, yeah, they suck. And I was like, oh, okay. And then he just kind of was telling me about um different bands, and he made me a tape that had Answer That and Stay Fashionable on one side, and then Very Proud of You on the other. And I don't think Shut Your Mouth and Open Your Eyes had come out yet. It was like maybe just about to come out, and
Mm.
I just got obsessed with AFI and just kind of bought everything they did from there, like the Fire Inside EP, and then Black Sails, and then all like just I was kind of buy it the day it came out, and got to watch them kind of totally turn into a different, not a totally different kind of band, but really grew with them. And but yeah, I guess the comps were really big. Like I had the Fat Comps, and the Cinema Beer Nuts and Cinema Beer Belly video, and
Yeah.
that was really eye opening as far as like how to and skate videos, kind of like how to act punk, or how to like behave kind of like the way punk people do. I was like, I
Mhm.
kind of was just soaking all that up from those video comps.
It's like so different to think about a world where information had like a monetary value and just how you had to pick it up from like you're saying, like you had to observe the culture from wherever you could, because you couldn't necessarily just like go online and like Google it and see like a bunch of cool videos on YouTube. Maybe someone's made a
Yeah,
documentary about it already. Like you're kind of putting all these pieces together from like anywhere you can find
yeah,
source
yeah.
material.
And it was tough. Like I don't know if it's like that for everybody. It's not like I grew up in, you know, fucking Mississippi or something where I was in Southern California, so um but still there was just not
Mhm.
that much. And so watching, yeah, like Cinema Beer Belly and Cinema Beer Nuts, like just watching a High Standard video and like noted, like looking at how High Standard were all goofy, and but they were cool, and I liked how they dressed and stuff. But that's another one where if I go back now and look at that comp, it's like the bands on it are insane. It's everything from like Mustard Plug to like Man or Astro Man, and then like Strife,
Yeah.
and then like Super Chunk, and then like I forget what else, like uh I don't know, like crazy shit.
AFI
Goober
has,
Patrol,
you know,
He Who
Goober
Laughs
Patrol
Last.
too.
Oh yeah,
Absolutely.
oh my god, He Who Laughs Last video, like the like crowd footage. I think it might be at Gilman, or maybe it's at Berkeley Square or something, but that shit was like, oh my god, it was
Oh,
so
it's
like
amazing.
tantalizing. I was like, I would kill to be in that crowd, you know.
Actually, where it must be Berkeley Square because it's kind of narrow, the venue. It doesn't seem like that. It doesn't have that Gilman like corner room kind of vibe.
I think I know it is from listening to the Davey Havoc episode of your show. So
Those that we talked
I think that's why I
Okay.
know that. But it's like, it's kind of like a vague piece of information that I could be wrong about.
I remember going to, and I think we talked about it on his episode too, but like when I went out to California to Berkeley, and I was at the Lookout store talking to the people that work there, and they're like, "Yeah, we remember when Davey came back from the East Coast and brought moshing here,"
Whoa.
and they were sorry, they were saying like it was the first time anyone had like gone out there, and he's like, he was even telling them beforehand, like, "Yeah, guys, when I tonight I'm going to dance and it's going to look really weird." And he started like throwing the fists and doing like all the stuff you do in the '90s with like hard
Wow.
pitting, and they were like, yeah, it was fucking weird, but like he is the guy that kind of, I guess, brought it to at least a certain segment of the scene, because there were like definitely hardcore bands doing it like that back then, but
Totally.
I guess it was like he was the guy bringing it to the Lookout scene at least.
Yeah, and then he also fucking brought, like eyeliner and fishnet shirts and shit. Like
Hmm.
nobody was wearing that shit and playing hardcore like at that time.
they
Yeah.
they were like, they're one of the most interesting bands to kind of watch during that, because like the whole thing about punk is like trying to be the same band as long as you fucking can, like holding
Yeah.
on to that. But like
Yeah.
you're saying, like they're like actively, you're watching this metamorphosis happen, and like those records were coming in like a year apart. So like,
They were, yeah. And everybody I knew, like all like the kind of skaters at my school and stuff who liked AFI, like, yeah, AFI is sick. They all were just like they hated it, and they thought, oh, they were so like betrayed by it. and I was just all in. I loved every progression. Like I loved Black Sails. I got more and more just obsessed as their kind of like world got more I don't know, like they started to kind of have a little more of a little universe that they lived in.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, and it's so unfortunate that that whole thing, and like I guess to their benefit at the time, but got kind of subsumed by this like hot topic
Oh, totally. Yeah.
emo quote unquote thing, because like what they were doing was so different, but
Yeah.
it's now I think forever linked to that in some people's minds, you
Yeah.
know?
I mean, they got so big as a band on Nitro Records. Like they, especially in LA, like I don't know how it was all across the US, but they were huge before they even signed to a major and stuff. And yeah, even if you go back and listen to like Sing the Sorrow, which had all their MTV stuff on it, like that doesn't really sound like that other Hot Topic shit at all.
No.
Like it's that record's almost like, I don't know, has like classic rock elements. It's really cool record.
Well, they never sounded like that stuff. Like that stuff was
No,
trying to
yeah,
sound like them at different points,
totally, yeah,
but yeah, like what they were doing, it was coming from like a very different, place, and
yeah.
they were always they weren't always huge like in Toronto, but every single
Hmm.
time I saw them, they like caught, they caught the room. They were the band
Yeah.
that won the night.
Oh yeah, I watch like videos of AFI in '99, like so, or like around that time, just so much on YouTube, and I just get so stoked. Like I don't ever really feel like I really want to play a show right now, but if I watch like an AFI live set, I'm like, I just want to put on my guitar. I like just want to put on my guitar and like spin around and just like it really that's one of the few things that really makes me want to play a show.
Yeah, no, I definitely saw them. Oh man, like like you're saying, like every that as those records were coming out, like at every stage, watching them kind of evolve. And
Yeah.
it's funny because I saw them in Southern, I guess it was Santa Cruz, and DBS, the band from Vancouver, who are like my childhood favorite band, and I
Oh,
still one of
awesome.
the best bands ever from Vancouver. But they got out the opening slot. They kind of got thrown on the bill because AFI used to go on tour with them like super early on when they were
Oh,
still
cool.
like old AFI.
Yeah.
And I was talking to them beforehand, and they were like, "Yeah, we couldn't believe the sound check. Like, what happened to the band? Like, they were,
Yeah. Yeah.
but they were like on another level. Like even at that point."
Everybody I knew who liked them would be like, even if you were on board for the record before where they had changed, what everyone was bummed. Like I remember people being bummed on Shut Your Mouth and Open Your Eyes, and then I remember people being bummed on Black Sails, and then I remember people who liked Black Sails being bummed on Art of Drowning because it had like that one song that sounds like Pat Benatar or whatever. Like I just loved it all. I just like I was I guess because of um Jade wearing Smith shirts, I kind of went through my mom's CDs and got into the Smiths and Morrissey and the Cure and stuff. And I don't know. So I was just I knew that that's the kind of stuff that they liked. So I was just stoked to see them do something kind of poppy like that
Hmm.
and do it really well.
Yeah, like they never felt success adverse. Uh,
Totally. Yeah.
they were always just kind of like going for it, and
They
it
were,
was.
yeah, they exactly, yeah. They were always really popular around
Mhm.
like I got an AFI shirt at the mall when I was a kid, and I remember wearing it around, and I got like it was like kind of the first time people started to notice me. Like I don't know, just other like maybe a little older punk people would be like, "Hey, AFI," like cool, you know. And I was like, "Yeah, all right, cool." But like, it was like a lot of places I went. Like if I was around, people were just like everyone seemed to know AFI.
It
Um,
it's also funny how like geographically bands are taken up differently, and AFI maybe in all of California, but certainly in the Bay Area, it's like a different thing. It's like Corn in
Bakersfield, you mean?
Bakersfield,
Yeah,
like where these bands
totally.
are, like they're
Yeah,
not like they're like real, and like they have like a very important place in the hardcore scene in a way they
yeah,
might not
yeah.
be taken up in other places. Like Corn, like talk to someone from Bakersfield about Corn, they will fucking fight you if you talk shit.
Yeah, totally. What was the band before Corn? Someone was
LAPD.
LAPD. Yeah, yeah. Can't talk
They're
shit on them either.
can't talk shit on LAPD. They were on Triple X Records with
Yeah,
Angry Simones, and I'm trying to think who else was on that label back then. But they're like tons of classic LA bands. Like that's the thing is like it's very interconnected in that LA music scene.
yeah, yeah.
Um, so where did you kind of go from getting this AFI tape? I guess you're getting into the Smiths and the Cure from your mom's
Yeah,
stuff
yeah,
too.
that was in middle school just because I just saw Jade wearing Smith shirts, and I was like, I think my mom has that CD. And you know, I always liked a lot of stuff. Like so my stepdad got music from the that catalog where you get like 10
Columbia
CDs
House.
for a penny, Columbia House, yeah.
Yes.
And he got a bunch of I remember he got like Soundgarden and a couple other records that I didn't like, Pearl Jam, and he got Ween's Chocolate and Cheese,
Yeah.
and that like blew my mind. And the actual CD, like not the artwork. I mean, the artwork's amazing with the wrestling belt and shit. But if you actually open up the actual art on the CD, it's just a middle finger. And I was just like, as a kid, I was like, that's so fucking cool. And it was like punk to me, you know, like it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
I was like, it's antagonistic. Um, so I was like, damn, this band, what is this fucking band? And then that record is just insane. Like it's so much different kind of shit going on there.
I'm really fascinated by that band
Mm-hmm.
because they're definitely tangentially connected to punk. Like Captured Tracks put it like a 7-inch by this New Jersey kind of like new wave outsider guy, and one of the brothers is on that record as one of his first recordings.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, and like my friend who roadie for like the Dead Milkmen, Dan like roadies for them and stuff like that. So I know they're like connected to punk, but then they're also beloved in the jam band world too.
That's
Like
because of Fish. Fish cover one of their songs, but yeah, they're not. I mean, they do jam, but like it's a different kind of jamming.
yeah,
Like yeah,
yeah.
is Brown. But yeah, as
Yeah.
a little kid, I was been like 8 years old. I was like really into Ween, and then um, I just liked like poppy stuff from a young age. So like I like Goldfinger and Suicide Machines and that type of shit. And I remember uh, my friend came to school and he's like, dude, I heard this band and they sound like Pennywise but with a British singer. And I was like, oh, that sounds cool. And he's like, yeah, they're called Smash Mouth. And 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 he had Fushu Mang or whatever the fuck it's called, and
Is
he
that
put it
was
on,
Walking
and
on the Sun?
yeah, totally, and I like loved it. But he was kind of before it had any radio hits. I don't know how he got hold of this before like it had really broke.
Well, they're
But
Southern California, right?
Bay Area, I think like San
Oh,
Jose or
weird.
San Jose, I think. Yeah, because isn't that where what's his name is from? Guy Fieri.
Is Guy Fieri like actually connected to him? I thought it was just because they looked kind of similar.
Dude, Guy Fieri didn't used to look like that, but he would like hang out with the Smash Mouth dudes, and he thought like the singer Steve was just sick. Like he just liked Steve and like liked his whole thing, and so
He's
when he
swagger
started
jacked.
to get he swagger jacked him, dude.
That's so
Guy,
awesome.
yeah, yeah. So little known fact. But anyway, so I was like really into the Smash Mouth CD and just stuff like that, and then yeah, like I liked all the comps and. I I had some like mostly just had AFI CDs. I had like all the Offspring CDs, but I mostly just had comps. So I just kind of knew like there's another like side story, but like I knew Agnostic Front only from Punkorama 3, Gotta Go, you know that song?
Yeah,
From
yeah.
the East Coast. So that's what I thought Agnostic Front sounded like. And then years later, I was at a bar and I was talking to this guy, Dennis, who's this awesome guy here in Long Beach who just knows a shitload about music. And I was maybe like 21 at this time, and he's like, "Oh, what have you been listening to?" And I was like, "Oh man, like I've been listening to that new Das Oath." And he's like, "Oh, I think I know them." He's like they kind of sound like Agnostic Front, and I was like, "No," because in my head I only know that one Agnostic Front song, And then later, like a couple years later, I got into or someone turned me on to Victim in Pain, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, this does kind of sound like Das Oath. I get it now, yeah."
Yeah.
But anyway, but I had these kind of like comps that were kind of all over the place, especially like those Hopeless Records comps. Like they had like the Weaker Thans, Super Chunk, but also like Mustard Plug and like uh the Supertones and shit. You know what I mean? Like it was
Mm-hmm.
so I kind of liked a lot of different stuff. And then
We had to get the comps, right? Because everything else was so expensive, right? And like,
dude, I would literally buy comps with change. I would just be like
yeah,
pulling up the couch cushions, like grabbing quarters, and like I'd still have enough to get like some candy. Like I would just buy stuff with quarters.
I would break it down like, and I would do quick math in my head and be like, how much is it per song?
Yeah,
That's how I'd buy CDs.
totally. Yeah, and that's, I mean, you'd see those Rancid CDs and they had like 9 million songs. So you were like, Ty, I'll get this one.
Definitely buying this one.
But dude, I didn't, yeah, I didn't have the money to risk buying
Hmm.
some fucking Bad Religion record with like 3 good songs on it. And like I had all ages and I fucking loved it. Like it was great, but like I couldn't risk just buying a band's new CD because I'd been burned so many times. Like, or a couple times, a couple times, and it hurt so bad. But I got everything AFI did, but yeah.
It's interesting to think about like how reviews at that point were a public service. Like when you
Oh
read a
yeah.
review of a band's record, like they were like you were like, oh shit, okay, they're like this now, or it's like this now, or it's they haven't
Yeah,
changed like that.
totally.
Whereas now it's just opinion pieces on
Yeah.
albums because we can all hear
Think
it.
pieces or some shit.
Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
we can all just like check in. Like it doesn't really serve a utilitarian function like it did at
That's
that
really, yeah,
point.
that's a good point. Damn. Yeah. So anyway, my point is I had a lot of comps, but because of that, I think I kind of just dabbled in a lot of different things. Like I guess the Epitaph ones kind of had a sound, but even those later ones have weird shit on them. And then by later I mean like 3 and 4. But the fat one kind of had a sound, but like yeah, those hopeless ones were all over the place. Um, like I was really into Scared of Chaka. Like I really liked, but I only knew like a couple songs. But I got fucked with Scared of Chaka like heavily, and like Dillinger 4 and stuff. But I also like really fucked with Mustard Plug, because I was
Yeah,
just like 13. I was
yeah.
just kind of into whatever. And anyway, where I was going with that was I liked all that stuff, and then the end of middle school, like is like the very end of 8th grade. I went up to this kid at my school who wore all black, and I was like, "What's up, dude? Like, I know you're into some fucking goth ass shit because you're wearing all black. Like, I got in, like, cause like, what are you into, man? Like, Sisters of Mercy or some shit that I don't know about."
Yeah.
And then he's like, "Nah, dude, I'm wearing all black because I like Star Wars and I'm dressed like Luke Skywalker." And I was like, "Oh, whoa, whoa." And then he's like, "I like ska." And I knew ska because I knew like from like the radio, and then I also um like knew it from, like, I liked it. I was like, "Oh, whoa!" I never knew there was people who just liked only ska.
Hmm.
And he's like, "Yeah, I don't like punk or anything or like goth music or whatever. I like ska." And he was like into ska, so he liked like Let's Go Bowling and like kind of more like music because he was in the band. He played trombone, so he was into bands with like chops.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
he was listening for chops. He wasn't like listening to fucking
If you're a band
Buck
dude,
09 and shit. Yeah.
well, because if you're a band dude and you're playing horns, you're gonna fall into ska because that's like where
Yeah.
you can see yourself.
He was good too though. Like he was good. He was like, so he got into like crazy music. He was into, or not crazy. It's not crazy, but especially not now, but he was into like K-pop and shit and like Korean rap. Like, and this is like 2000, like 99, 2000, 2001.
Mm.
So this is fucking like way before what's going on now. Like,
Hmm.
and he was just a kind of trippy guy who he liked a lot of shit, but
Well, that's also
at
at a
that
time
time he
where
was into ska.
that was also at a time where you had to source that stuff, like we're talking about. Like you couldn't just like be into it because you read an article and got into it.
Totally.
Like you'd have to find a place to get all that stuff.
He was like professional level, like DDR. Like he would travel to Las Vegas to be in like DDR competitions, and I think that's how he got into like J-pop, and then more so into like Korean rap and Korean pop and shit. So he was
What's
a trippy guy.
DDR? What's
Dance
DDR?
Dance Revolution. Sorry, dance. It's like, with the we step on the things. Yeah,
Yeah.
he was like competition level. Like go to Las Vegas to like compete. He was a trippy guy. He's a trippy dude.
Have you
But
kept in touch with this dude? This guy sounds
little bit,
incredible.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Every now and then, like when something cool happened in publicly for Joyce Manor, like whatever, it's like a Pitchfork review or something like that. He'll send it to me on Instagram and be like, "So proud of you, dude! Like, so cool to see how far you come, or whatever." So we kind of keep in touch a little bit, but not like not super close, but
Did he
yeah.
play in any bands? Because like a guy who can dance like that and play the trombone, like
And
that's like
rap.
a front person and rap.
Oh yeah, he was so talented. He's so musical. His dad actually was in a band called Moral. His name is David Morrill, and his dad was in a band called Moral, which was like a hair metal band, 80s hair metal band. So I remember I brought my bass over to his house, and his dad was like, "Oh, can I see that?" And then just was like shredding like slap bass, like all like and I was like, whoa. So it was in the family. Like
Yeah.
it was a anyway, yeah, that guy got me into ska. And that was like around the age I was like 13 or 14 where I started finding out about shows, and those were like I'd seen AFI a couple times, and I went to Warped Tour in '97, but those just felt like concerts, and they were kind of it was fun, but it was like kind of scary. I felt like a little kid at a thing I shouldn't be at. But
97 Warp Tour?
yeah,
You would have been so young.
yeah, I was born in '86, so I was 11. My
Wow, that
stepdad
would have
took
been.
me. Yeah, it was cool, but it was also like holy shit, like
When you
this
told me
is
that before, I didn't do the math on how old you would have been wandering
I was
around. I thought you
11.
were like
Yeah.
13 or something. Whoa, that's
No,
crazy.
I was like I wasn't like too little, like it was fine, but I was a little ass kid. Like
I got a
whoa,
12-year-old
yeah.
upstairs, and like I wouldn't want him wandering around the Warp Tour now. Like it's
Dude,
different now,
my
right? But
they had long ass lines for beer. Like it was poorly organized, and there was a long ass line for beer. And so my stepdad said he pretty much waited in line for a beer the whole festival.
yeah,
And I just like walked around on my own. And I remember watching a couple bands. Like I remember watching Pennywise. I remember watching Sick of It All, and I remember watching the Boston's. I remember watching the Vandals, and Warren like was naked and shit. And I thought they were great, but
yeah.
that's kind of all I remember. Like I remember seeing, I know I saw other bands, but they didn't register who they were or even what it sounded like. I just remember it being like really loud and kind of overwhelming and hot, and everyone's like way older and bigger than me, and it was just like yeah, kind of gnarly. But when David Morrell got me into ska, that was like the age of when I was starting to go to shows. So then I got into like ska and like the Asian Man comps, and then those are the first shows I started going to was like Orange County ska shows, and that was the beginning of feeling like I was like a part of a music scene and like kind of around the same age as some of the people there and making friends and shit like that.
So who were some of the bands that would have been going at that time?
First show I went to was a Chain Reaction. Like I saw AFI, Sick of It All, Hot Water Music at the Ventura Theater, and that was sick. But again, I still felt like a little kid. And then the next year, or maybe 2 years later, I saw uh, Big D and the Kids Table, the Lawrence Arms, MU330, and Slow Gherkin. I don't know if you're familiar with. Maybe you're familiar with the Lawrence Arms.
No, I know MU 330 because they've been around
Yeah,
for. They were like an older band, and
totally.
you know, like they had
They were
like
fucking awesome.
yeah, and Lawrence
Yeah,
Arms definitely I know as well and
yeah.
stuff. That would have been Asian Man Records tour, I guess, or
It was. Yeah, they're all the bands were on Asian Man. I don't think it was listed as that. I think it was just all the bands happened to be on Asian Man.
okay,
It's funny. Uh, the guy that plays drums with us now is Neil he is also on the Lawrence Arms.
okay, yeah, yeah.
And he was
And Baxter.
and Baxter,
Why are
guitar
you
and
bearing the
Baxter.
lead on like the Baxter?
Yeah, and Baxter. Um, and uh, so yeah, he played that show. But anyway, sorry, yeah. So that show was awesome, and that was kind of where I like took note of like how people were dressed and like people were wearing Chuck Taylors, and I was like, all right, I gotta get some Chuck Taylors. And then I kind of that's when I really feel like I was into punk and underground and started going thrift stores for my clothes and stuff, and really kind of felt like it became more of my identity rather than just like a continuation of just liking music off the radio,
Yeah,
because yeah.
but that Sick of It All show. It's funny because like that's where I find a lot of people's progression normally goes. Like you go through like pop punk, you get into the ska, and then you eventually wind up going to see like a Sick of It All type show, and that's the bridge to like sort of the next stuff. But it's interesting, like you went to those shows, but I guess those shows would have been crazy violent too.
Yeah, I remember the way the Ventura Theater is. There's like there's it's not super tiered, but there's like a lower tier where the pit was, and then there was an upper tier, and I was like against the railing of the upper tier, so there was no one like pitting around me. I would have been like 12 or 13 at that time. I was real little, um, and yeah, I don't remember being like scared of like the violence or anything, but yeah, but there probably was. Um, some hardcore dancing and shit, but I don't think it was like psychotically violent or anything. I definitely wasn't like one of those people. Actually, you know what? It was after that. Scott, was it fuck. I'm kind of maybe getting my timeline mixed up, but I saw maybe the next year after that Sick of It All show, I saw AFI um in 2000 at the Palladium with Rancid and the Distillers.
Mhm.
And that was my first pit. That was the first time I like got in the pit. And that was fucking awesome. At the front of the show, there was like they were taking everyone's like studs, anything with like studs. So I had like these baggy ass green jeans on, like big ass green jeans. And it was like, they were huge. So they were being like held up by my stud belt. And they took away my belt. So like my pants were kind of falling off my ass. I was like holding them up. And so like during Rancid, like I didn't pit for AFI. I was like too scared, but during Rancid, I was like, I'm going to fucking pit. I'm going to do it. And I went in and like immediately, like I get kind of like shoved in, my pants fall down around my ankles and I just eat shit and I just trip and fell. And then this like super sweaty, shirtless, like Mexican dude picks me up and he like yells in my ears, like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I have like my pants around my ankles and he's like kind of running with me, like wedding style. And then he like sets me upright and I pulled my pants up and I was just like, "Yes." Like I felt awesome. Like I just kept going. I just kept running, all covered in this dude's sweat. So that was like when I was first like comfortable again. And then that, I think that the ska show I was just talking about was actually after that. And that show I was in the pit the whole time.
Mhm.
Like literally every second of every band I was pitting. I think the pit died down in Lawrence Arms, but like for like a second, because it was mostly a ska crowd. But
Yeah.
I was just literally like there to pit, and it was fucking amazing, like incredible.
That must have been hard tours for those guys to be on at times too, where like you're like
Yeah,
the
because
punk band on the ska tour.
well, especially like Brendan had been in Slapstick,
Yeah, of course.
which are ska, so he's like a hero of
A
ska
legend.
punk, and right, but he's kind of over it, you know. So
Mhm.
it's like, yeah, it wasn't maybe the best fit for them.
Yeah, no, and I guess like, and now that label is like, obviously has a much more kind of like diverse kind of name for itself, but at the time it was very much like where you would go for ska punk.
Yeah, it's weird. Actually, I talked to Mike Park about this before, but it's like the first like 8 Asian Man releases are ska, and then there's ska spattered throughout, but there's not that much ska. Like
Yeah,
if you actually look at it, it's like a lot of kind of Midwestern pop punk emo stuff, and it's a lot of indie rock, and um, there definitely is ska. Don't get me wrong, but like the first 8 were ska, and then it was a pretty mixed bag.
it's kind of like when you think of Victory Records, you always think hardcore. You don't think of Hi-Fi and the Roadburners. You don't think about the rockabilly bands that they had.
Oh, dude, me and Neil from Lawrence, I was talking about that. He mentioned a funny ass, like a Swedish band. Were they Swedish?
Donuts?
Donuts. Yes, that's
Yeah.
exactly it. Yeah.
It's I can't, and I'm blanking on her name now, but she's in the Vicious and she was in International Noise Conspiracy.
Yes.
She was
Yeah.
in the Donuts too.
Yeah.
As
We were
well.
talking. We were just talking Victory Records, and I was talking about like those comps, the Victory style comps.
Yeah.
Like the cover of it, I was just like, "Fuck, this looks so hard." Yeah.
Do you remember the band Straight Faced?
Fuck yeah, dude. I go to the guy's bar all the time. It's down the street from my house. Kevin, the guitar player.
What? That's amazing.
Wait, yeah, right.
Yeah.
They went to Epitaph afterwards, right?
I think they were on Epitaph for a couple records. Yeah, definitely were 100%.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I remember meeting there the first time they played here. They played with, I think it was Blood for Blood before,
Okay.
and this is before any of those bands were signed. Like they were all touring on like 7 inches basically, and talking to the dude from their roadie, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna get the cover of Victory Style tattooed on my back when I get home," And ever since then,
Damn.
I've been like, "That's the tattoo I want to get one day." Like,
Yeah, right. You
just
gotta.
yeah, just
That's
on my
fucking.
lower back.
I'm gonna ask Kevin next time I see him if he knows who that is, and I'll get a pic. I'll get a picture. I'll send a picture to him of you, and then. Yeah.
I'll get that. I want to get that rocket tattoo on my back.
Yeah.
If
Once
he
you
doesn't
get it,
have that
dude.
tattoo, I'm shotgunning it now because I want
Yeah,
to
there
get
you
that
go.
thing.
What'd you say, Swagger Jack? You're gonna
Yeah, Swagger Jack that tattoo. Exactly.
Oh yeah.
So where would you kind of go from getting to the ska stuff? Were you already playing music?
No. I didn't start playing guitar till I was like 17.
Okay.
So I was just pitting. I was just at shows and just pitting. Um, so yeah, like I said, like before that, I was pretty infatuated with ska and into the ska scene, but mostly just because like I knew about shows and stuff, and I was started going to other stuff like, um, going to some indie rock shows and stuff. And my girlfriend at the time liked like the Murder City Devils and shit. And so I remember going to see like Botch and Murder City Devils, and I thought it kind of sucked. Like I didn't really have fun. It was kind of like an older, kind of stuck up crowd. Like no one was really moving around, and it was just kind of a cooler scene. You know, people drinking and shit. And I was like a hyperactive kid that wanted to like be like going to a show for me was like more than just like standing and watching a band. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
which I later learned to do appreciate. But I mean, still, even like I'd rather go to a crazy show like for sure. But I got into like some like I guess indie rock shit and like Elliott Smith, I guess, and like Nick Drake, and I just kind of more sad like indie rock type, like Modest Mouse, just kind of bummer type shit. I don't know. I guess I was like probably got like broken up with or something, and I was just like trying to find some sad music. And then I kind of started to gravitate more towards indie rock, and I was like a really big Weezer fan. I'm still a really big Weezer fan. And then my senior year of high school, I went to, my grades were really bad, so I went to this continuation school, which is like it's for kids who are failing or like have other problems, like they're like fighting or got kicked out of regular school basically.
Mm-hmm.
And I showed up there like dressed all fucking dorky indie rock guy or like sweater vests and shit, and like realized immediately like I was gonna like they were gonna eat me alive. You know what I mean? It's like showing up to prison, in like a fucking cute little outfit. I was like, fuck, like I gotta like change up my steez here. And so I just kind of went with what was familiar. Like there was like these like a few punk people that were there, and I just kind of blended in with them. It's like how you have to join a gang, you gotta like, I was like, I don't know, I'm not really that into punk anymore, but I guess I'm just gonna hang with these people. And then I just started kicking it with them, and then I got back into punk just from being around, who I was around and stuff, and I got like into like I guess like Crass and like Oi. I got into like Coxbar and like shit like that. I'm not gonna name a bunch of bands, but like that type of shit, just because it had musicality to it, like it was catchy. Like
Mm-hmm.
I tried to get into like Discharge and some of the other shit like that, but I just always liked more hooky stuff. I like the Addicts. Like I got into the Addicts for the first time, and I guess just more like like punk shit, like spiky punk shit that was melodic.
Were,
Yeah,
were these guys like in going to shows or in bands? These kids?
yeah, they were like drinking 40s. They were like kind of street punk type kids, but
So
they were
was it
into like
like
the Virus and like
yeah, yeah,
that
Clip
type of shit.
45 and stuff?
Yeah, more like political, like oi polloi and
Okay.
shit. Like they were like vegan and like yeah, it was like these two kids that I'm mainly thinking of, and I actually ended up starting a band with the guitar player. His name is Rick, and we just sound like Operation Ivy because I actually didn't really get into Operation Ivy till I was 17. When I was into ska, I didn't really like Operation Ivy. Like I thought I didn't like how it was recorded. I remember listening to Operation Ivy in middle school and thinking it sounded kind of scary. Like it almost sounded kind of like this is a weird analogy, but like a snuff film or something. Like the harshness of the vocals of the recording sounded like I shouldn't be listening to it.
I get that
Like
vibe. Yeah.
it was too intimate or personal or weird. Like
Yeah,
this is
like
not a finished recording. This is like someone's property or something.
I
It's
get
hard
what
to
you're saying.
explain.
Well, no, I get what you're saying because like I'm not so much with Operation Ivy, but there's definitely other bands that like the first time I heard it, I'm like Poison Idea is a good example actually. Like Poison Idea, like I remember going over to this older punk dude's house and to buy records, and he's like playing me Poison Idea, and I'm like looking at the picture of them that he had like a poster of them on his wall, and I'm like, yeah, this is too like I don't know. This makes me feel uncomfortable. Like something
Like
about
maybe it's
this.
evil. Like it might be
Yeah,
evil.
like this is like I like something's like
Like
danger.
these people might be murderers. Kind
Yeah,
of is
it
how I
might be
felt.
it might be
Yeah, like
bad.
I might be listening to a murderer. Like I don't know. I don't really like this. And I later like began to really kind of crave that.
Yeah.
Like once I developed a taste for it, and uh that would have been like senior year. So I got really into Operation Ivy because I'd been missing out. So that's a great record and really great songwriting. And that was around the time my friend Brian taught me how to play guitar, and I learned like I just learned every Op Ivy song. They're not super hard, but I just learned them by ear. and then just wrote basically Op Ivy songs. And me and some of those punk kids just started. They were like, they were down with like leftover crack and chugging victim and Op Ivy.
Hmm.
So they were like, yeah, we'll start a band like that. And then yeah, that was my first band. And that was kind of how I learned how to write songs. I kept coming back to ska. Isn't that so weird? Like I would get out of it and then I would get back into it. And I would get out of it. It's fucking weird.
Every time you get out, it sucks you
I
back
know
in.
they pull me back
The
in. Yeah.
syncopation is like a siren's call.
I just yeah. I mean, I listen to ska all the time now. Like I fucking love it. Yeah.
It's funny because like it was something that growing up was around a lot because my dad was really into two-tone stuff. So
Oh hell yeah.
I'd hear that a lot, and then because he'd also be into like Prince Buster, and so I'd hear
Yeah,
that.
the old Jamaican stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and then like certainly I think it's like just playing it for my kids too. It's like it's so like ska music is so accessible. Like it's such a it's like it's catchy, and I had to like actively resist it. But now I go back and I listen to Prince Buster and I listen to like two tone stuff and like stuff that I was
Yeah.
like but like there were years where I was like, oh no, never, I'll never listen to it again. Oh, but now I'm like,
Really?
oh,
Wow.
I'm over it. I
Yeah,
got to
yeah.
be into it again.
What about the Boston's? Are you down?
Uh, yeah, yeah. Like I
Yeah,
liked
I
them.
love.
I saw them in Mustard Plug and Gangrene at a radio show,
Whoa.
a
Yeah,
surprise
because
radio show.
the bass player was in Gangrene,
Yeah,
right? Choking.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And it was I think it was on Mustard Plug's first record they played, and
Whoa.
it was great. And I was super. I liked the Boss Tones, but I missed out on the Tang years.
Okay.
And by the time I was kind of getting into it, it was kind of like the Clueless Mercury
Soundtrack. Yeah.
Records era, and it was like I think if I got into it a little bit earlier, I would have been all
Yeah.
in.
I fucking love it, dude. Yeah. That's
There's
definitely a ska band, but there's a lot going on there. There's a lot of like
oh,
interesting.
definitely.
It's like it's yeah. I hear like a lot of other shit
Have
in
you
there
ever
lately.
heard? I think it's called Cheapskates. It's like the
Oh
pre Boss Tones ska band that those guys did between Impact Unit and the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones.
no, no, I know Impact Unit. My
Oh
friend the Pit. I know that shit.
yeah, so this is like the bridge band, and the only reason I
Okay.
have it is because Patrick from Matador taped Curtis's from Tang's radio show way back when it aired, and it kept this tape. And then when we signed to Matador, he gave me a CDR he had made of the tape. I'm
Oh, that's
like, oh,
awesome.
that's amazing, and it had this song on it, and that's the only place I've ever really heard them. Oh no, I think I've got a compilation now with them on it too
Okay.
that I
Yeah, yeah.
found. But it's yeah, it's an interesting track actually. And this friend of mine, Robbie Brookside, who's legendary British pro wrestler, Channel 4 TV made a documentary on him in I think it's like 1992. And in the documentary, he goes to the Mighty Mighty Boston show, and the footage is so sick
That's
of them
awesome.
playing in England at that time. Just kids stage diving and like, yeah,
Oh, that
it's
rules. Yeah.
super awesome.
Yeah, that's Boston's rule. So that would have been like by my senior year, I was kind of like my last. Well, no, okay, so yeah, I started playing in bands with those punk kids, but after my senior year, I kind of didn't have to like pretend to be tough anymore, um, and kind of started getting back into I guess indie rock shit, and but my songwriting was still kind of rudiment. Like I wasn't very good, super good musician or a good songwriter, so like I guess the songs I was writing were trying to be indie rock, but still using a lot of like things I learned from Op Ivy songs and shit. Uh, but yeah, I guess hanging out with my friend Chad, who like, oh Jesus Christ, I got so ahead of myself. But anyway, the ska punk band I was in broke up, and then I started a band with my friend Chad, who would later go on to be in a band called DNF, and then he started the band Condition. Do you know that
Oh yeah,
band?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so he kind of like kept me into punk because I I started a band with him because he was like one of the only people I could find that was like really into being in a band and actually wanted to do it and was like serious about it and like had like a goal of like we're gonna tour. And so I kind of he kept me into punk and got me into some more shit, opened my eyes to like more bands.
What So like what kind of bands were you guys going to see at that time? Like what were some of like the local bands or
Hmm. I guess I don't. What was good? There wasn't a lot going on, honestly, for like in Southern California at that time. Like there was some hardcore stuff. Like there was a band called Miracle Mile, and I don't know if you have Final Fight.
yeah, I remember
It was
Final
kind
Fight.
of
Yeah.
yeah. It wasn't really my thing. So yeah, we were just on a kind of a weird island and just doing our thing.
Would you play shows at that time?
Yeah, we played a ton of shows. They were like just house shows in the suburbs, and fuck man, who did we play with? We played with Sam from Trash Talk's band that he was in. He was in a ska band called the Shenanigans. Um, and we played with like just shit like that. Like they were like a ska band with like breakdowns. You know what I mean? It was
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it was a trippy thing, but and we were kind of like that too. Like we had like weird kind of like reggae parts, but then we would have like blast beats, so kind of like it was fucking weird. Um, it's just trying to like blend too many things.
Have you ever heard real reggae from Japan?
No.
They're like a hardcore band with reggae breakdowns.
Oh, crazy.
They're wild. They're super awesome. They've been around for I think they may even still be around because like went to Japan a few years ago, and they were playing an all day festival, but I didn't get there in time to see them. But I think I
That's
saw them
amazing.
outside. I was like, oh shit, I think that's real reggae. But they're so sick. It's just so weird to hear. It's like very jarring. Like
Yeah.
every song is very jarring.
Yeah. So was our music. I don't know what it was about that time where the kids just wanted to like I don't know, like I was into that band Big D and the Kids Table, and they did a split with like Melt Banana,
They
and like
did?
the Big D song, yeah, split with Melt Banana, and the Big D song is a Ministry cover. So it was like
Oh,
it was
weird.
just it was like shown to me. It's like yeah, like there's no boundaries, like you can just do everything. But then like this is when we're like 18 or 19, so I think soon after that we started to kind of get some taste and stop trying to like. And
You
then
need a
chat,
couple boundaries. Like not all
yeah,
boundaries, but just
oh
a few.
god, right. But yeah, through like I guess I got into like Melt Banana through that, and then got into like maybe like The Locust, and then Charles Bronson, and then fucking Spaz, and then all that. I kind of went down that rabbit hole for a little bit, but at the same time was also into like a lot of other stuff. But yeah, Chad, kind of the guitar player who I wrote the songs with, kind of went off and did like this power. He had a power violence band called Duke Nukem Forever, and then later did like Condition and a bunch of other bands. And me and the bass player went kind of more like a jawbreakery kind of route and did Joyce Manor.
Did you ever go up to the Smell for shows?
Oh yeah. Oh dude. Oh my god. That's a whole other thing. So there was this dude that worked at a record store and in Redondo Beach, and his name's Freddie. And I've known him since I was like just from he worked at the record store since I was like 13 or 14. And he did two bands. He did a band called This Song Is a Mess, But So Am I. And he did a band called Former Ghosts with Jamie from Shushu.
Okay.
And he was yeah into like a lot of he liked like punk and hardcore, but he also liked like Skinny Puppy and Throbbing Gristle and that type of stuff. And he would play at the Smell, so I would go see like him play at the Smell, and that got me into a lot of stuff like this band Bar, like this dude Brendan Fowler, and go to see Mika Miko, and that's what I mean by like when I was getting into power violence, I was also like into like going to see like Wives and No Age and shit like that. Yeah, Smell stuff for sure.
Were you at that infamous Drop Dead show? You ever hear
No,
about
the
that?
Smell. No, yeah, I remember it, but I wasn't there. No.
Okay. It seems like that show was a real dividing line in kind of like the trajectory of that place where that's when it stopped being more associated with that kind of scene and just
Yeah,
started
yeah,
it became its own thing, right?
yeah. I don't remember there being too many like just straight up punk shows there. Like occasionally, but yeah, for the most part, it was more like noise and like industrial leaning bands. Like this band Babyland would play all the time. I saw Babyland like a shitload of times. Um, yeah,
So where would Joyce Manor play? I guess you wouldn't play The Smell, right? When you guys were
we
first
we
forming?
did we did play the Smell, but that would have been a little later. Like we played there with Touche Amore, and we played there with Japanther.
Hmm.
Um, But like in the early days of Joyce Manor, there was a house in Long Beach called the Hickey Underworld at the a couple of my friends lived at, and we pretty much exclusively played there. Like we played a couple other spots, but we were just kind of the house band there. Like when touring bands would come through, like Off of Their Heads played there, and like Comadre and I can't remember the name of the fucking band. Whatever. A bunch of like a handful of touring bands came through. Loma Prieta played and stuff. So we played with like just kind of all those bands. And I can't stress to you how much in 2008 nobody was playing pop punk. Like
Mm-hmm.
it had not really had any kind of resurgence. Like emo tinged pop punk was just like not fucking cool at that time. Um, this is kind of the beginning of like Burger Records stuff kind of starting to happen, and a lot of people seem to be playing screamo. Um, but yeah, like it was just kind of us and the Ergs
Mm-hmm.
doing. I mean, there was other bands. There was like Chinese Telephones and shit, but like I feel like the kind of pop punk that we were doing at the time was like really really uncool, and we had some people that were into it, but for the most part, people kind of looked at us like we were crazy.
Yeah, it is a really kind of like interesting time where like everyone was like, yeah, doing like a screamo thing or like a hardcore thing or a power violence thing. It was like
Yeah,
everyone was taking it super
it
seriously.
was definitely ceremony trash talk days, and I really liked both. I mean, I still like both those bands, but I was super into that too. But I just fucking love pop punk. Like I
Yeah.
really really love it, and yeah, I just had a couple of these pop punk songs, and you know what it was? That house to every fucking band. They did a lot of noise shows. There was one guy that lived there that was into that type of shit, and so it would just be like noise shows, and the show would be so fucking boring, and you couldn't talk. You had to be like respectful, and it was fucking so boring the whole time. And then after the show ended, there would be a big party, and it'd be really fun. So as soon as the fucking music stopped, it got
Yeah.
fun, and
Yeah.
we'd like actually put on good music, and like someone would put on a fucking Saves the Day album, and everyone would be singing along, all hammered, because everyone actually likes that shit. And then I was just like, I'm gonna start a fucking pop punk band. And then we started playing those shows, and it was really fun. But yeah, I can remember like out of town bands being like, what the fuck is this band? Like nobody was really doing that shit. It doesn't seem like it now. It seems like there's always been like title fight and shit, but
Yeah, there was like a
at the
folk
time it was
punk.
weird.
Yeah, it was like folk punk was big.
Lots of folk punk, dude, and like lots of folk punk, but it was kind of like the stuff that was coming through there was almost like a little bit freak folk. It was like this dude Foot Ox and Splinter Cake, and it was folk punk for sure, but it was like kind of freak folk. Like it was a
Hmm.
little weird,
Okay.
or like quirky. You know, I guess folk
Okay.
punk is kind of so it wasn't like super oogly.
Yeah. Yeah.
It wasn't like political necessarily. It was like very personal and also kind of like quirky. Like I don't know what to equate it to. I guess kind of Moldy Peaches ish, or like
Okay. Yeah.
Joanna Newsom or some shit. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like, yeah, it's kind of like because the folk punk definitely had a very particular aesthetic eventually defined for it, which is I think the oogly kind of
Well,
stuff.
some of it's yeah, kind of more like dun chicka dun
Yeah.
chicka dun,
Yeah.
like the yeah, like the dan 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 dan, like that kind of vibe. But this was not really like that. This was more like I don't know, kind of quirky or more arty folk punk. But it's
Okay.
still fucking folk punk. More like Paul Barabo. You know Paul Barabo? You know what that is? No,
No, I
that's
thought you
fucking
said Paul Bearer for a second from sheer terror, but
no, not that. But that's tight.
I would love to see
Yeah,
him do folk punk.
yeah. Let's see if we can. Let's
It'd be super grizzled sounding.
yeah, let's do it.
He did spoken word one time in Montreal,
It's
and
pretty close.
we were
It's pretty
playing.
close.
We were playing a show, so I couldn't make it over there to see it. But my friend went over and said it was like super heavy and stuff. And so I was
Whoa.
always hoping you'd do another performance of it, but no, I think he was just like, nah, one and done.
You just get up there with an acoustic guitar and you got folk punk,
You
baby.
got folk punk exactly.
um yeah, so that was kind of the landscape at the time.
Last time you told me that you guys have a connection to, speaking of pop punk, one of the forefathers of the pop punk scene, the last.
Yes, we practice in Luke Loans. He was a guitar player of the last. We practice in his garage. And we have the whole time. Chase, our guitar player, went to middle school with his kid, and when Luke found out that his son's friend was playing in bands, he was like, "Hey, if you guys ever need a place to practice, like I have a little like jam room in the garage. It's all soundproofed and stuff." So um, he's been letting Chase practice there literally since he was in middle school. So Chase just turned 30 the other day, so it's like fucking almost 20 years or some shit. Like,
Wow,
so
that's
isn't that
awesome.
amazing? It's fucking amazing. So we've written like every song we've ever written in the guitar player of the lasts. It's not one of the Nolte brothers. It's like a dude who he actually played in the band during like the Bill Stevenson era. Um and yeah, it's fucking crazy. It
Well,
was really funny when we toured with the Descendants. Um our bass player Matt was like, there's like a little spiral staircase you go up to get to the stage, and he was like going to go up there and watch them play side stage, but they were at side stage waiting to go on,
yeah,
and he's like,
yeah.
oh shit, so he's like, all right, I don't want to interrupt them, and he like overheard them talking, and Bill just says to the other guys, he's like, did you know that Joyce Manor practiced in Luke Lone's garage? Isn't that fucking weird? And then they went and played. That's what they were talking about, like before they went and played. And it is fucking weird, man. It's cool though.
Well, since you were last on, I researched him, and he also, I think, played in Waves of Grain, too.
Oh, Luke did?
Yeah, which I think is the
He never told me
pre-last
about
band.
that.
I think it's from like
Oh,
85. I think they put it on an LP.
oh,
Um,
crazy.
and yeah, like I haven't been able to track it down to hear it, but I'm very very
Yeah,
interested.
he toured with them a bunch and stuff. He's always asking me about like, is this club still around? You guys ever play this club? And yeah,
He must have Greg Ginn stories too for being on SST.
yeah, yeah. He doesn't really talk about. He's not one of those guys who's like, let me tell you about the olden days. Like
Yeah.
he doesn't. He's just generous. He's just like a really generous guy. He's not really in music anymore. He has like a um some kind of computer job and super nice house in Torrance and just super generous with his garage because and I think he likes that part makes him feel kind of connected to the music still and he's just a really generous person and honestly it's like it's made being in the band so much easier to have
Mm.
just a place especially in the early days man like it was so hard to you know get have a place to practice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
And it's also like a continuation though of Torrance Pop-punk.
Yeah, totally, dude. I mean, growing up, like down the street, I grew up in this town called Lomita, which is actually where the Descendants lived. They all like lived together in Lomita, and there's a Mexican restaurant called Alfredo's, and they reference that in the all song. But on the wall, there was all kinds of like Descendants newspaper clippings, and I remember seeing that from like being like 8 years old and just being like, whoa, like who are these guys, and just soaking that up. And yeah, it was really amazing when they asked us to go on tour with them. Because I'm a fan. I'm definitely a fan. Like I'm not. They're not like. I'm not like a crazy mega fan. Our bass player is like that's his first tattoo is a Descendants tattoo, and he's like a mega fan. But yeah, it's just such a it's been in my psyche since like childhood, and I do like the Descendants a lot.
Yeah. No, and I think it's interesting when you look at California how like you've got like a restaurant that has Descendants clippings on the wall. Like it feels like that history is a lot closer at hand to like kind of pick up on. Like obviously, there's some stuff that's a lot more mainstream. It's played on the radio, but at the same time, like the fact that you can kind of see these things, you're like living down the street from where the Descendants used to live. Like it's
Yeah,
always been so. I've been always very envious of that.
but you know what's weird? Like really think about it. Like think about the population of California. Like how many fucking people are from California? Like there are not that many bands from the like South Bay or from like that area. Like I guess there's like some like bands from LA, but like not really. Like especially the part of LA that we're from is really culturally devoid. Um so like you have like that like Descendants, Black Flag, Minutemen, and all that type of shit, but really for the amount of people that are there, like there should be more bands. So
Yeah, I think
is there anything from like that shit to like Joyce Manor? Like not really. Like can you name like
like I'm sure there is because like there's all that kind of like but like it it does come up that there's a certain point in Los Angeles where shit just got so heavy and so violent that the scene just changes, right? Like, and
Oh,
that's
with
when,
like the suicidal gangs and shit.
yeah, like in that, and like Circle, like
Hmm.
all the different
All
crews
the
and
gang shit.
gang
Yeah.
stuff got too heavy, and just shows in general got pretty violent. And I think also people just changed what they were into, and so because of that, you get the rise of, like this stuff like L7 kind of comes out of later on, like that whole scene, or
Yeah. Yeah.
there's that sort of stuff. But like it feels like, Brad Logan talked about when he was on the show that there was a certain point where it just kind of dried up in LA in terms of like
Yeah.
punk stuff a little bit.
It definitely felt like that when we were growing up. Like there was a great kind of like a smell adjacent scene when I was in high school of like these really good bands called like La Joshua, Rock Goggle Fantasy, and my friend Freddie doing like This Song Is a Mess, which was kind of more like industrial um type stuff. But yeah, La Joshua and Rock Goggle Fantasy were fucking awesome. But yeah, they didn't really go on to like, become notable or anything. But yeah, there's not a ton of shit that actually makes it out of that place. I don't know why.
Yeah, I don't know why either. It's interesting because there is so much of it a generation before,
Yeah,
like there
totally.
is so much, punk and just music. Like reading that Bad Religion book, it's just they talk about the fact that there's all these studios that are there just from the 70s, and how the fact there's all this great gear kind of floating around. So all these bands had access to this stuff.
Yeah,
Um,
totally.
and but yeah, like I guess it just kind of,
Oh, FYP. There's FYP.
yeah,
Sorry.
of course, yeah,
Sorry.
absolutely,
Yeah.
classic.
FYP are from Torrance.
And Yeah, I guess Recess Records. There's a couple other bands that are from that area too that were on Recess, right?
Yeah, yeah. But a lot of them, some of them are from Orange County.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a couple. But a lot of Recess stuff was like just not necessarily local. It would have been like bands that Todd knew from tour.
Yeah, like
And
Propaganda, I Spy Split.
or like the Bananas from Sacramento, or that would be a little later. But yeah, like the first way era of Recess, I don't know too much about like the early shit.
Have you ever heard that Propaganda, I
Yeah,
Spy Split?
yeah, totally. It's awesome.
That's like one of the best Canadian records ever.
Yeah,
Like
from Torrance. Guy in Torrance put it out.
I know. Here we
Like,
go. This is the Torrance Canada connection,
yeah, love it.
reaching across the divide. That's a cool thing. That's the best thing about punk is the fact that you do have, and now it's changed because I think everyone's sort of like part of decentralized scenes a little bit more. But punk was like the first place that you really have decentralized scenes with equal exchanges of information, right? Like it wasn't necessarily like cultural edicts being shipped out from certain areas. Like you had great bands from Canada being put out by labels in California, and same way you have
Yeah,
bands and you know from Scandinavia being put out in Japan. It just feels
yeah,
like there's
totally.
like a global connection.
Yeah, yeah, crazy.
Did you guys ever go to Japan?
One time, yeah,
That-
it was amazing.
That's the best.
It was so cool. Yeah, yeah.
It's the dream, and it's amazing when you go there and you realize how big High Standard is.
Oh yeah, totally, totally. There, yeah. I was like, yeah, I was kind of. I think they had just put out a record when we were over there, and I was like, I just couldn't believe it. I was like, I was hoping there would be high standard shit everywhere, and then there was. You know what I mean? I was
Yeah.
like, fuck yeah. I was like, oh man, I hope I see like a high standard poster at the record store or something. And then there was like high standard shit everywhere, and I was like, oh weird. This is awesome.
Well, they're kind of, I guess they're it's like Blink 182 or Sum 41 in Canada, or
Yeah,
like they're that band that during the era exploded.
yeah, yeah. I don't know if that was that on Fat over there. I think it might have been on a different label over there, huh?
I think it's on their own label. I think it's Toy Box. I want to. It's not Toy Box
Yeah.
Records, but it's like the same label that I think put out some Pushead stuff
Oh,
at,
okay.
at a different point too.
Damn.
And they actually do have records on like HG Fac. Like they have like definitely connections to the heavier Burning Spirit style hardcore
Yeah,
stuff
yeah,
too.
totally.
But it's so funny when you go there and you're like, oh shit, yeah, this is everywhere. Every time we go over there, we'd ask the people from the label or the people from the touring company, do you know any like punk bands, hardcore bands, throwing out old Japanese bands, and they're like, no, no, until you get to High
Yeah.
Standard, then it's like, oh yeah, definitely High Standard. I know High Standard.
Yeah. That's funny.
Um, so this has been awesome. And anytime you want to come back on here, Barry, and do this again, the door is always open.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, that was a blast. Really fun chatting with you.
Thank you, Barry, for coming back on the show. And Barry will be back for a part 2, 3, another part at some point in the near future, because we got more to talk about, and I feel it's always the energy so different when you have to re-record it. So, Barry and I think have a fresh episode in us still, but we will get to that in the future. Speaking of future, coming up in like a few short days, we have a special episode that it's brief. The sound quality might not be up to some people's standards, but my God, is it in keeping with this band's live album legacy? From the band The Replacements, the legend Tommy Stinson will be here on Turned At a Punk. And this is a fun little short episode, but I'm very excited for you to hear it. That will be coming up once again in a few short days. Remember, as always, Black Lives Matter. The lives of Indigenous peoples matter. We need to protect trans kids. We need to help trans people protect themselves and stop hate and violence towards Asian people and people of different faiths. And just, these things aren't political issues. These are just basic human rights issue. What someone chooses to do with their reproductive system in their body, that's not a political issue. That's their choice. That's a human rights issue. There are political conversations. We can have political conversations. They're important to have, but these aren't political issues. These are something bigger than that. So get involved. If there's organizations that are doing work in an area that you feel work needs to be done in, if there's people out there that are calling for bodies to be at a protest, get involved. You're not going to regret it. You're not going to look back on things that you've done to help other people and be like, fuck, I wish I didn't do that. Maybe you did something really fucked, but none of these things that we're talking about. There's definitely situations I'm sure someone could throw at me that where you would regret it, but none of the shit we're talking about. Speaking of not regretting things, sign your organ donor cards, because you don't want to be dead and be like, fuck, I should have signed that thing. I could have given these organs to someone that needed them. You probably won't be thinking that, because by the time you're dead, you can't. But someone could be living with those organs if you had signed that card. Go out there and make your own culture, because anyone can do this shit. Start a band, start a fanzine, start a TV show, start a digital platform. Just draw a picture, whatever. It makes you feel a little bit better when you do stuff like that. And put yourself in the world. Put yourself out in the world. There we go. And I think that's it. Stay safe. And I will see you on the next episode. Thank you very much for listening. Goodbye.